Alright, welcome Dream Team to today's banger of a tutorial. We are going to be looking at and building our own video. This video has this many views. We're going to be looking at Google OAuth2, the authentication system, to make this whole thing feasible. Configuring all of that. It's going to be two parts. That will be part one, and then the second part will be building a Node server that has a cron job that repetitively updates the title of the video to match the views. It's going to be an excellent video, and without further ado, let's totally dive into it. So we're going to start off in our terminal, and I'm going to cd change directory into YouTube tutorials, where all the magic happens, and I'm going to make a directory called James. I'm going to cd into James, and I'm going to start off by making a server.js file, and I'm also going to initialize a node project with just a basic node file. And so if I go code dot, you can configure the setting too. If you look it up, it will open up my terminal, and you'll see that we have a server.js file and a package.json file. Cool, so that's a good start. The next thing we're going to do is install some basic dependencies for this project. So you can do this in your terminal or open up a terminal in VS Code, which I might actually just do. So I'm going to be npm install Express, Google APIs, and cause. We don't actually need cause, it's just good to learn how to use. I'll let them install, and we're also going to install a dev dependency, so save developer, and that's going to be nodemon. And nodemon just automatically restarts our server whenever changes are made to it. And the last thing we're going to do is come in here and change the start script to nodemon server.js, and we're just going to ignore a file called tokens.js, which we'll come across later. Actually, it's tokens.json. Cool bananas. Excellent. So now we get to come into our server and start making some magic happen. So first we're going to require our Google from const Google equals require Google APIs. We're going to initialize our app by going const app is equal to require express, and we're going to call that. You can do that in 2 lines and require express, and then, but I like to do it in 1. We're going to define our port. Const port is equal to 8008. So that's all good. We're going to come down here and make our app start up. So we're going to go app.listen, pass it the port, and we're also going to give it an anonymous function that just console.logs. We want backticks server has started on port dope swaggity. Cool. So now we have a basic app running. We should actually just be able to start that up. So if I just go npm start magic, almost. Oh, nice restart. Thanks, nodemon. The last thing I'm just going to show you is how you would use cause. Once again, we don't need it, but you go app.use, you require cause, then you just call that. So that's good when you have a front end and a back end system on different local hosts and you want them to communicate. It just takes down any security barriers. I mean, we can just leave that for now. Now that we have initialized our server, we're going to look at how the server interacts with the Google OAuth2 system by coming over to the API system in Google Cloud Platform. So if you just come to the home page of the developers console and go into APIs, the first thing that you're going to have to do is enable APIs and services. And so there's lots of great services. You can use the same system for like Google Drive updates or any of that kind of great stuff, but we're just going to come down to the YouTube ones and we're going to enable both of them. So I've already enabled them, but you'll come in here and click enable API, and that's all you have to do for that. Easy peasy. The next thing you're going to have to do is come into credentials. Actually, no, let's just have a look at OAuth2 system. You might have to just initialize a test app, so I just call this test app load. You don't have to publish or anything, super basic. And then come into credentials, and we're going to create a credential called OAuth client ID. We're going to call it a web application. You can name it whatever you want. Add some URIs, so you're going to want http://localhost is 1. Since I've already done it, I'm just going to show you what mine are already. If we edit that, so localhost, in this case it would be 80, maybe I will actually make a new one. Okay, so I'll just go, no, it's all good, it's totally chill. So yeah, we'll come in here, have a look. So whatever port you're using, so in this case I should probably change it to 8008, and maybe for the sake of this I will 8008. And yeah, you want the redirect URI to match the same port, and I will explain why soon. So that's all good, and what you're going to have to do now is download that OAuth client, and that will be a JSON file, and make sure to keep it a secret and don't show anyone. But you're going to want to drag that file into your project directory, just like that, client secret.json. Don't show anyone because it's super secure. You're not going to get to see it, but I just managed to show everyone because I'm good like that. And the next thing we're going to do is just pull in that data. So up the top, I'm going to initialize some magic stuff. I'm actually going to enter a few of these lines down. And I'm going to go const OAuth2 data is equal to require. I'm just going to require that file, so client secret.json. Nice. Now we have a couple of variables we need to define. I'm going to do that just under here. So we're going to have const client ID. I'm going to copy them across, but you can either get them from the GitHub link to this project, which is in the description, or just write them out. And basically it's just going to read the JSON file and read the client ID, the client secret, and the client URL, which are all in these files. That's actually URIs though, just if you're spelling it out. And the other thing you're going to need is a video ID to whatever video that you want to constantly apply this process to on your YouTube channel. And so in this particular case, you can find that ID by just clicking v equals whatever it is. That will be the video ID. So that looks good. And so essentially how this whole process works is it's like a handshake. So you have your tokens, you reach out to Google, and it's like, okay, that's this user recognized by this set of tokens. And now what we have to do is make that handshake, and as soon as that handshake happens, we get redirected to a new URL, and that has some secret information that we have to save, and it has 2 tokens. One of them's a refresh token, and the other one's the other token. I forget the name in this particular moment. And both of these tokens are going to be required to continue the process after we close all of the handshaking. It basically is just like a verification that the handshake has occurred. And so we're going to have to, when we get redirected to that new route, we're going to have to receive that information, and that's what we're going to need to do now, which is define 2 routes to achieve both of this. So the first one's going to be an app.get, and we're just going to call this one get auth URL, and it's going to be request and response. And in here, the first thing we're going to have to do is define something called scopes. And so the scopes kind of defines the range of information that you're looking for. So for example, you could get profile information, you could get the email, but in this particular instance, we're going to need a sensitive scope, which is one that we have defined and enabled for this particular project. and it's the YouTube one. And then once we've defined our scopes, we're going to have to get that first URL where we basically go. It's like going to a playground to meet some creepy dude, shake their hand, and get some cookies. So we're going to define the location where we go get the cookies, OAuth2 client, and I'm going to go dot Oh, I forgot a massive step. So before we do this, we're actually going to have to define the OAuth2 client. So we're just going to do that here. OAuth2 client equals new google.auth.oauth2, and just pass it the client ID, the client secret, and the redirect URL. And now we can access this variable here and just say, okay, cool, generate auth URL, and we just have to give it the access type, which is going to be offline, and this just means after we close the authentication or the handshake window and everything like that, we can continue to run these processes. And we're going to go scope, and we're just going to pass it scopes. Cool, so if I just save that, run our little server, the last thing we're going to do is just go res.send, and we're going to send some HTML. We're going to send 2 A tags with an href of that URL. And that's just going to allow the person, so if I go to here, so if I just go to localhost 8008 and go to this particular route, we see that we have the magic URL here. Now, before you go ahead and click on it, don't get too excited. Clicking on this link is going to take us to an authorization window, and then once we've authorized, it's going to take us to the redirect URL. And in that URL is going to have a magic code that we're going to have to magically receive. And so what we're going to do is we're going to go app.get, just a base route, and we're going to pass it something to receive that code. And I'll show you that. And we're going to have to define an async rec response arrow function. And we're going to go constant. We're going to destructure it because it will say question mark code is equal to, it's a query parameter, is equal to rec.query. And yeah, we're going to have to destructure that out. Once we've got that code, we're going to go const tokens is equal to await OAuth2 client.get token, and we're going to pass it the code from the redirect URL. And then the last thing we're going to do is from that tokens object, we're going to destructure that and get our refresh token, which I talked about earlier, to make sure that this, and then the access token, so that this process can continue to happen in the background and our session never expires or any of that kind of stuff. So that's all good. The last thing we're going to do is we're just going to quickly want to write this to a storage place. And so for that, what I'm going to do is just make a db.json file. And I'm also going to make another file called db functions. And so you could use any kind of storage system. I like writing my own really basic read and write functions. And once again, you can just go to the GitHub page, and that's in the description, and copy these functions. Super good if you just want your own little database with a JSON file. But basically, I've got read database and write database, and it's just going to save whatever pass information, so the refresh and access tokens to this database file, so we can access them always. And then here, the last thing that's going to happen is 2 more things actually. So I'm just going to write to the database, which I'm going to have to import from the top, and I'm also going to have to import the read database. Write database, I'm going to pass it an object with the refresh token and the access token, and when the key and the value match, you don't have to do anything else, so that's super nice. and I'm going to call that file tokens.json. So the second parameter in my functions is the database name. So that's actually going to make a new file called tokens.json, so we don't need that first one. And the last thing I'm just going to go is res.send. Actually, I'm going to go status 200, so let everyone know that it's successful, and I'm going to go .send. Great, success. Cool, so that should be everything that we need to initialize the Google OAuth2 system. And so if we just run through that now, we'll check that that all works. So once again, if we just do that, oh, got to restart the server. And so if we just go to that link, sign into our account, we will see that because it redirected to us to the success page and we have this code, our get server will have read that code, saved these tokens to our tokens.json file. I can't show you mine. And that is your fully authenticated system. And so now when any code that you need to do, all you need to do is read your refresh and access tokens and you'll be good to go. So that's the end of part 1. And part 2, now that we have all of our tokens and everything, we are just going to actually define the cron job to make the whole system continuously update and access that YouTube data. Thanks for watching, and if you like the video, leave a like and subscribe, and yeah, check out part 2. Catch you later.